Today, we're doing something I absolutely love, answering your questions. It's the third time I run this format, and once again, you guys delivered. Smart comments, tough questions, and some wild takes about PSG's season so far. We'll talk tactics, standout players, what's really working under Luis Enrique, and what still worries me. And of course, we'll dive into the January transfer window, targets, rumors, and what PSG realistically needs. Thank you again for being part of the channel. Let's jump straight in. All right, so let's do this. Let's jump straight in because a lot of good talking points and good question to answer. So the first one, actually in answer to one of the comments I always put on the video, and from like a guy who's like commenting a lot, Aliki Birige. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, Aliki Birige. And tends to have like some fairly sharp and like sometimes a bit pessimistic comments. But some of them are pretty spot on actually. And this one I thought was interesting was like, obviously after the Monaco loss, my debrief of the game was not very sunny and bright. And I think that game really showed a lot of the missing elements that we've got this season. And so like, you know, I was asking the way of kickstarting the conversation, who you guys thought were most to blame for this performance. And Ali Kibirege says the coach, our mentality is so off this season. And I thought it was interesting. I just wanted to like use this one to come back to the Monaco game a little bit. Because obviously like you debrief a loss and one in which like really the team overall did not shine at all. And there's a lot of negativity attached to it. Overall though, like, you know, I know not everything is perfect in this PSG team. I know like there's lots of frustrating elements within the first half of our season. At the same time, we're still second in the Champions League, second in Ligue 1 by a whisker. And, you know, I think like realistically looking at the beginning of the season and casting ourselves back to August, when we started the season with no summer prep, with players really tired and so on. If we could have signed to get those results by December, I'm pretty sure all of us, myself included, would have signed for it. So sure, like there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's, you know, stuff that I hope will improve. But at the same time, let's keep some sort of focus in here and not go too far into the negative. So onto this comment, like I thought it was like, obviously an opinion that personally I don't really agree with. I think Luis Enrique overall, he's got this sort of like now magic personality and charisma within the PSG fan community, and not anyone is going to say anything bad about him. And like, I don't really think the mentality is really like what's most of this season. I do think in some cases, like, yes, it's not necessarily as sharp as it could be. I do think, you know, on some of the games, we show that maybe we're taking them a little bit light, but at the same time, every time this team has had to step up for a Champions League games, they typically have. And so, you know, we know like what's important for the team and for the club and so on. And when that happens, like the players step up, and that's really what we could be asking them. In terms of the coach, I think it's interesting because like I do think in some cases like not everything he does is perfect. Obviously, he's still human and there's still mistakes. I think on the Monaco game, more than the mentality was like maybe not rotating enough, especially in midfield, just after like a big Champions League game versus a tough English team opposition. But at the same time, I also know that a lot of the things that he tends to work on in the first half of the season, he kind of uses that as an open air lab for new ideas and new tactics and new ways of doing things. And typically, like what we've seen in the past 2 seasons, that the first half of the season looks a bit rough and there's things that work, things that don't work. And then in the second half of the season, progressively all of those things either fall in place or fall out of practice, and we're left with like a really well-working PSG machine. So I very much hope this is what's going to happen this season as well. I think the challenges of this season are a bit different, but still I'll give him credit because it's something that we've seen the past 2 seasons and hopefully like something we're going to see again this season. Next one. So also like someone who comments regularly on the video, seismically, who says, can we agree that we should have gotten rotation players over the summer transfer window? We knew injury were coming and it was likely that TTs would not be good enough. It's a tough one because yes, I think like on principle you're right. Like I think the mercato was a bit light, and I think like right now we're definitely seeing what you're saying, which is like, you know, we've got injuries, TTs are a bit light in places. At the same time, like it's always a bit hard because like insight is always 2020, and also like mercato is not completely black and white in the sense of like, yeah, sure, but like at the same time, let's say we recruited a rotation player for Hakimi. You know, right now it would look great because he's injured and so on, but his injury only came because like Luis Diaz completely reckless tackle on his ankle, and it's not really, you know, like it's not really an injury that came because he played too much, or like obviously he played too much, but like the injury wasn't directly correlated to that. So it's kind of always hard to look back and make those judgments. I think on balance, yes, you're right, and I do think, you know, I wish we had like maybe one or two more players within our squad that we could rely on more. But at the same time, like if I play this game of like, oh, like let's, you know, look back at the summer and point out the mistakes, I think in the summer, like every PSG fan out there wanted Kang In Lee to be sold. And right now, like he's been doing really well and carrying us in a few games. So like it's always easy to look back and be right. I think on the moment it's not that easy, and I think in mercato as well. Like let's always remember that it's not like, you know, real life is not like playing Football Manager or playing FIFA as much as it wish it was. It's not like, you know, we're dropping money and like bringing in a player and then like we'll see what happens. We need to make sure that whoever we bring in is going to have enough space, enough playing time, that they're going to have a role to play, that they're going to be able to fit in with the squad in terms of mentality, that financially we don't really like do anything silly, especially in a year where like there's no domestic TV rights. So that's going to be a big gap in our finance. So it's not just as easy as saying like, oh, like maybe let's bring two more players and like we'll snap our fingers, pay 60 million euros and bring whoever, like, you know, whoever looks good on paper. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So next one, same one. I actually like just switch the order of the questions. This one was interesting as well. What is the solution against intensive man-to-man marking, which we've seen against Bayern, against Chelsea, and against Arsenal, especially on Vitinha, another deep creative player on the pitch to find spaces between the lines? So yes, like we've seen this, and I think Monaco to some extent as well tried to do the same, of really committing to an intense like man-to-man pressing system. So there's two things. One, yes, we can like divide the creative output between our midfielders and our defenders. And I think in this context, like the addition of Chevalier is really something that's meant to speak to that, because all of a sudden, like we don't necessarily need Vitinha to always be there to move the ball out of defense. Supposedly Chevalier can do it, and he can like find some of longer passing to break that first line of pressing. And then other than this, so like we can like divide the output in midfield, and I think that's where, if I think of the Bayern Munich game in particular, I think that's where like the output, or even the Chelsea game in the Club World Cup, the output of a Fabian Ruiz and Joao Neves was just a little bit insufficient in both of those games. Not necessarily easy because they tend to be like relatively well covered in those games as well. So it's not just as easy as saying like, hey, like, you know, Fabian Ruiz will drop in deeper, and all of a sudden, like he's gonna be open and he can do the creativity at depth. That's just not really how it works. The players tend to be covered as well. Of course, it opens opportunities for passing and combining, but it's not a foolproof scenario either. I think what we've seen against Bayern, and I think like probably is more of a roadmap on what to do, is that when the teams opposite us commit to this sort of man-to-man pressing, typically what happens is that their midfield and some of their defenders have to move really high up in the pitch. And so typically it leaves big spaces open between their midfield and their defense, or even at the back of their defense. And it's something that we've seen in the Club World Cup against Bayern Munich, for example. Barcola was dropping into that space between midfield and defense and creating absolute havoc by being able to like pick up speed, turn around, and like make run at the defense, with some of their defenders being out of position as well. And that one, I think, is like a very, very smart way of looking at it. And, you know, obviously, like, even if like their defenders all move forward to try to cover that space, then a player like Barcola again, or Dembele, or Kvara, and so on, they also have the speed to take runs at the back of the defense and just go straight route A into that space. And once again, like that's where you come back to Chevalier, and I can see a solution where like Chevalier just lumps the ball forward at the back of the opposition's defense, and you know, Barcola or Dembele are just the fastest in getting to the ball. Probably not the most beautiful or effective, efficient of football, but definitely something that could work. Next question from Q21. What do you make of Barcola? I get that he's tired, but honestly, we haven't seen a good game from him in at least 2 months. Is he hitting a glass ceiling in PSG? Yeah, tough one. Yeah, I think you're right. Like Barcola, it's been really difficult. I know like what's being said is that he's tired, he's been playing too much, and he's been carrying a lot on his back for a long time, which is true. And like honestly, like he's a player that played nearly all of the games last season. He only missed a couple in the Club World Cup, but he played in every other game that we played in the season, which is insane. And then this season, like he had this, you know, he missed a couple of games here and there, but on balance, he's been playing a lot, and you know, carrying the attack a lot of times. So hard to blame him. I don't think he's hit a glass ceiling, but honestly, at this point, I don't really know what to make of it, because like you can't really judge him when he's like so clearly like lacking fitness and sharpness. But at the same time, yeah, like I think like what you said is true, is that he hasn't had a good game in a long time now. So I really hope we can like, you know, give him some time off soon. He can rest, and then like we can figure out exactly where he's at and what happens next for him. Red Capuno, hot take. We need to move on from Dembele and realize 24-25 was the pinnacle of his career, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime season, never to be replicated again. This one is such a hot take that he got his own answer for it. From James Karam, who's saying, Dembele has more class in one foot than the rest of PSG forwards. He was our best in 23-24 too. Yeah, I mean, I love Dembele. I think he's a fantastic player. Obviously, he's a Ballon d'Or winner, so I don't see us dropping him anytime soon. I think even at the end of last season, you could see that like his offensive output was less reliant on just goals. I think he had this golden window of January till March, April, where he was banging goal after goal after goal. But towards the very end of the season, that kind of stopped a little. And all of a sudden, he's more helpful in being able to drop in between attack and midfield in the false nine to help create space, to help create opportunities, make the last pass, and so on and so forth, for the pressing on the goalkeeper. And yeah, for being able to roam around and create mayhem for opposition defense. I think like, you know, James is also right in saying that like technically he's an incredible player, and you don't want to not have this sort of quality in your line of attack if you can. And so it's more a question of, you know, what is the best place to use him. I think the false nine is really interesting, and I really like having him be in the center of the pitch, where he can, like, shape the game all around and everywhere on the pitch. But at the same time, if he doesn't have the same goal output that he did in the first three months of this year, at some point we're going to have a question mark, because we do need our attackers to score goal, and right now they're not doing that. And Dembele, like, yeah, like, there's no guarantee. The staff is very, like, the PSG staff apparently is very confident that he can keep, like, scoring a lot of goal. But yeah, we'll have to see when he comes back from injury and he plays for a while, and see what his output look like. Next one from James Karam, this time all on his own. Who is your favorite PSG player? Which attacker should PSG sign in January? So who's my favorite PSG player? Right now, Vitinha. I think, like, just so much class with the ball. Honestly, like, technically so smooth. And I really like the guy as well. He's so humble and hardworking. Feels like genuinely like the kind of guy you'd be very happy to have a beer with, and you could talk football with him for hours, and, like, have a great conversation with him. So yeah, definitely, like, he's the one who's got, like, I've got a soft spot for Vitinha right now. But it's funny because, like, as cliche as it sounds, and I do realize it's cliche, but I really like the team overall, and, like, how all of those players are coming together. And I think, even a player like, let's say, Kvara, who I think is probably, like, I mean, I don't know him, but, like, I think he's probably, like, not the easiest one personally to deal with. I think he probably has, like, it looks like he might be one of those players who's got, like, the ego and so on. I really like how he fits in this team, and so yeah, like, I love them all, man. I love them all. That's it. Which attacker should PSG sign in January? So it's difficult because, like, which attacker should PSG sign? It's a super easy question, and, like, I can give you, like, one name, I can give you three, I can give you 10. The January edition makes it very complicated, because if we're talking about January, there's an element of reality check that we must include, and the reality is that very big players very, very, very rarely move in January. And I think we need to realize that the Kvara thing that we pulled off last year, honestly, I've been following PSG since the 90s, and it's, maybe, like, the best bit of winter transfer business that I've seen since in that time. So it's not something that, I think we can expect to happen every year. And so we need to be mindful of that. So, like, which attacker should PSG sign? I would tell you, like, Julian Alvarez. Yeah, for me, it'd be the one who, like, I think would make such a difference for the team. There's, a few others that I think would look great. I think for me, like, the one I really have a soft spot for, and I don't know if he's an attacker or midfield, but it's Nico Paz. I don't know, like, along what I was saying, I don't know if it's realistic in January or in general, because he's got such a weird contract position. But I really like the player. I think Yildiz of Juventus would be really interesting as well. And yeah, I mentioned that in a few videos. I think those are, like, players that we should be looking at. I think, like, yeah, Nico Paz or Yildiz, realistically, like, feels like players we should be trying to pull off something in January. I don't know if it would work. I don't know if they'd go for PSG. I don't know if the contract would allow, but yeah. And Julian Alvarez, like, I'll wait until next summer for him, but yeah, he's the one. And so then moving into, like, full-on transfer window questions, Rodrigo Moura is a perfect backup to Dembele. Same playing style, crazy dribbling and passing. That's why it's so important we get Moura in January. Yeah, I mean, like, the name Rodrigo Moura comes back often, and there's another one just after this who mentioned him as well. Like I said in my video with PSG, I think it's, like, probably the most likely players that we could sign in Jan. I really wouldn't be surprised to see us go back to him. I've got my doubts about the player. I think ultimately he's incredibly talented. And yeah, he could do great in PSG. But at the same time, I think he's still very rough and not quite like a finished player. So I do wonder like how long it would take him to really like scale up to the level of this PSG team. I think right now, like the way I see him is that it'd be like maybe like a more flashy version of Mayulu. Honestly, that's where I rank him. It might be a bit rough because he's been doing great stuff with Porto, but at the same time, the Portuguese league, I think it's still a little bit under like what Ligue 1 is, and definitely under in the Champions League as well. So yeah, and I think physically, I don't know, man. Like I really like he's really talented, so he could make it happen. But I'm a little bit doubtful about like a small player in size. I think he's like less than he's 1 meter 65 or so. So he's basically the size of Marco Verratti, playing as a false nine in Champions League or even in Ligue 1, where defenders can be super physical and really like big burly defenders. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that works, and whether his technicals are sharp enough to compensate for it. So that's why I've got my doubts for him. And then the last question. So, like I said, like wouldn't it be more realistic that PSG sign someone like Rodrigo Mora? Like, yeah, I think realistic. I'm just not entirely sure, like whether it's the right guy for it. And Akliouche in January. Just the way PSG moved recently. So Akliouche, it's interesting. So the name comes back super often. It's like I think a players and a lot of PSG fans have on their radar screen. First, like French journalists in general specialized in Mercato. A few of them and big names in their area have come out and said that Akliouche, yes, PSG likes the player, but no more, no less than they like a bunch of other ones, and that there never was like any sort of official approach or negotiations, either with the player or with Monaco. And so it's more like, oh yeah, like he seems like a good player, but like yeah, it's not really like it's never really been activated. It's not really like ever been something that turned into something real for PSG. So let's take this one with a strong pinch of salt. And at the same time, like, I don't know about you guys, but honestly, like, I've been watching him this season. I watched this game and I watched like the Monaco PSG game, and he didn't really impress that much. I mean, sure, he's talented and he's done some good stuff with the French squad now, but the Monaco PSG game, like he basically didn't get past Lucas Hernandez. And a player like a right winger coming into PSG, I would expect them to be able to like waltz past Lucas Hernandez, who for all of his skills, not the sharpest, not the fastest left fullback there is in the world. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not so sure. Even if like Akliouche plays as midfield, yeah, but like in Monaco, he could have done that for seasons after season, and like his coaches haven't played him there. And it's not like their midfield in Monaco is super strong either. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not super wild with the player. I think he's a good player, but is he quite like PSG level? I'm honestly not so sure. And then like if he comes in just to be a substitute and not really at the level of for our starters. One, we've got Kangin Lee who plays that same position and has been doing well this season. And two, like I think like Akliouche is a bit older. I think he's 24, 25 or something like this. Would he come into PSG just to be a substitute when he's starting to break into the French team and there's a World Cup in 6 months? I don't know. I find it a bit doubtful. So yeah, I'm not super sure about this one. So anyway, this is what I had for you guys. Let me take that off. There we go. This is what I had for you guys. Commenting the comments. Thanks for all the great questions and great points. Lots of interesting stuff. I hope I've given you my thoughts on all of it. Let me know in the comment if you have like any additional thoughts, any of my answers that you disagree with or agree with. And as always, please drop a like if you made it this far. It's a long video today. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified. And as always, ici c'est pareil!